Okay, so we're looking at Robert Frost's poem, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. What is the first thing that we need to do when we look at a poem that we've done on our projects and everything else? We have to have a what to start? Not yet. What's it called? What do we do with our colors on our project? A key. Allison, was that you? Yeah. We have to have a key. Okay? We are annotating through looking at these techniques in order to respond in writing. How does the author, the writer, use techniques, literary techniques, in order to convey meaning, tone, and mood, right? And then and from that, how do we apply it to our lives? Okay? It's not just they do it this way because. Let's carry, yes, but carry it all the way through, and how do we apply it to our lives? So we start with a key, okay? And then when we think about our key, I've already given you a few definitions. So obviously we're going to look at those today. So let's look at this. We're going to start with caesura. All right, and caesura deals with what? Punctuation. Okay, punctuation. All right, so let's look and get your color that you want to do. I'm doing yellow. Okay, so Gilberto, looking at this first stanza, tell me where caesura is. And stanzas are these. Okay?
The punctuation, the ending.
Well, okay, so tell me which words.
Okay, so no.
Okay?
The.
Okay?
Snow.
Okay? All right. Next stanza. Where? Year? Okay?
Yeah. Mistake.
Okay?
Flake. Deep. Keep. And both sleeves.
Okay. Caesura comes at the end, but it can also come in the middle. Where do we see on the last stanza another comma? Lovely. Okay? So count them. Somebody tell me how many there are.
10.
Well, we have this one in here, so therefore we have 11. Okay? 11 caesuras in here. Now, the reason why the poets use caesura and enjambment and anaphora is for pacing. When you read poetry according to the punctuation, you slow down. If you read poetry that has no punctuation, you're going to go faster. Okay? Is there a reason for that? Absolutely. Okay? And it's used in order to mirror whatever the tone, the theme is of the poem, how the speaker, writer feels. Okay? So let's look at, what's the next one? Let's look at enjambment. Enjambment. Okay? And whatever color you choose for that, I'm going to use orange. Okay. So, Juan, give me an example in this first stanza of enjambment. That's the absence of punctuation. Absence. Okay. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. Okay? There's one. The next one is second line. For the sake of time, I'm just going to go through. Queer, which means odd or strange. Near. Lake. Shake. Sweep. And that's it. Okay? How many there in enjambments? 6. Okay. We have more lines with punctuation versus enjambment. So is this because the poem is going to be read slower or faster? Slower, right? Because you're supposed to stop at the punctuation. All right, so we have that. Now, I've also mentioned the anaphora. Now, tell me where you see the anaphora.
Oh, I see one.
Two or more lines of the same word or words in a successive line or clause. So therefore, down here, do you see that?
Sleep, sleep.
Yes, and mile is the whole repetition of this whole thing, right here. That's that. All right, and then we have diction. Remember, we always look at diction when we're annotating a poem, because, as I said before, every word, most every word in the poem is tied into the tone and the meaning in order for us to understand it and get the mood. Okay? So now I'm going to write down tone underneath there. And then I'm going to write down stanza. There's 4 stanzas. And there are 4 lines per stanza, which makes it a quatrain. Okay? There is a meaning to that. Okay? There's a reason why a poet puts this poem in stanzas. Okay. All right, so looking at this, we have our key, caesura, enjambment, and anaphora, diction, and then we're looking at the tone. We already know the stanzas is the quatrain. And so next to this, I'm going to put Y. All right? Depending on where we are today and finishing up, we'll either answer that today or tomorrow. Okay, so put down Y. All right. Now, the next thing we do when we're analyzing a title of a book, a title of a poem, okay? We look at the title. Now, stopping by woods on a snowy evening tells us what season?
Winter.
Winter, okay? It's winter. Okay. When you think about the woods, what do you think of?
Trees and bush.
Of forest trees, okay? So if you are on a snowy evening and you're stopping by the woods, you'll picture a snowy evening. It's not a blizzard. It doesn't say stopping by a blizzard evening, right? It doesn't say that. It doesn't say whizzing by the woods on a blizzard evening, does it? Would tell us all different things, okay? So it says that he is stopping by woods on a snowy evening. So if you're doing that, is it chaos? Is it tranquil? Is it scary? Is it peaceful? The tone right off the bat. Peaceful, okay? So we're going to say, I'm going to put down here the tone. I'm just going to put peaceful. But I'm also going to put a question mark by it. Why? We're not for sure yet. We're not for sure yet. Because sometimes the poet likes to maybe trick you into thinking, well, you understand it, and then you just skate over the major meaning, okay? All right, so we're going to say the evening is peaceful, okay, tranquil, all right? And the woods can mean solitude, right? And think about the smell of a woods in the winter. Okay, what grows in the woods? Plants and animals, right? And the scent of maybe pine trees. And the snow is clean and crisp in that. So you have a sensory, hopefully, feel for this evening. There's solitude. It smells clean. All right? And he has stopped. He is stopping. When we stop by a peaceful, tranquil, beautiful area, what are we usually doing?
Stopping.
We're stopping, yes. But we're thinking, aren't we? We could be reflecting. So we're thinking, we're reflecting. And by writing these thoughts down, that is called commentary. You're making comments about the reading, which will help you write your essay in response to it, because you've already gotten all this stuff down. You also have some thoughts about these things, and hopefully come up with the whole tone and how he or she's feeling. Does that make sense? Okay, so we see right off the bat it is a peaceful evening. Now let's read it. Does anybody want to read it according to the punctuation or lack thereof? Okay. Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So we know it's rhyming, doesn't it? It's rhyming. So I'm going to write down rhyming. And that rhyme gives it a musical feel, doesn't it? It's the word is melodic. It's easy. It's harmony. Okay. It's the music is soft, rhythmic. Okay. It makes you feel good. You don't feel discombobulated. Which takes us into the evening, snowy evening. Okay. So did you hear how I read it with the punctuation? I was slowed down and then I sped up with the enjambment. And so why is that? Well, we're going to look at that. So he is starting with this first stanza. The woods, first person. He thinks he knows these woods. The man lives down somewhere in the village. And he will not see me doing what? Stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. Okay, so we see the snow, and he is isolated. So I'm going to write up here, isolated. Totally isolated. There's no one else around him. It's a beautiful evening. Or someone could say, oh, well, I'm afraid of that. But I don't think that's what he's trying to convey here. And so the word choice here is he's watching. I want us to circle that or mark that. He's watching the woods fill up with snow. But I'm going to show you that it's more than just watching the woods. Okay? So I'm going to put down a question mark next to the word watch. The second stanza says, my little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. Okay. On this particular stanza here, we have the idea that this is unusual for the horse and the man. That they usually continue through and are oblivious, perhaps, of what is happening. Okay? But here we see clearly that he is stopping and he is between the woods and frozen lake. So I bracket the woods and frozen lake. Okay? And then mark your between, and then of course the darkest hour of the year, evening of the year. When we think of the woods versus the frozen lake, is there life in the woods? Yes, yes there is. So I'm going to put life up here above the woods. There is still life on the frozen lake, but where is that life? Underneath. So it is underneath. Okay? And this man is between them, okay? Between them. He's between the life that he sees. This is good, y'all. And the life that he doesn't see. And he has been watching the woods fill up with snow. And perhaps he is watching, maybe, think about this, if it's reflective, he's watching his life. Maybe he's watching his life go by and he is not sure this is what he wants to do. We don't know. He's not here. But based on the things that we're looking at, we can see that he is perhaps in the between times. He is in the waiting stage of maybe solving a problem or something coming to him. And he now says the darkest evening of the year. Okay, fact, we do have the longest day of the year when it's light. We also have the shortest day of the year, which could be the darkest day. Okay? But when we think about poetry, it's not just a literal on the surface. He could have said, between the woods and frozen lake, the dark evening, in the dark evening. Okay? But because he says the darkest evening of the year, we could maybe convey that, what's the tone of that? When we think of darkness, we're all alone.
Scared.
Could be scared, but you also could be sad or melancholy. You're thinking about something. It's weighting you down. Okay? And so this is how we're going, but we're not for sure. And then the horse, what does he do? He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake, period. So we have a sense of impatience with the horse, contrasted with stopping. Okay? Impatience, the horse is like, let's go, and to ask if there is some mistake. And we have a period here so that we, as astute readers of poetry, we can know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is no mistake in the fact that he chose to stop this evening. Why? Well, it's a question we're having to answer, okay? Why is he doing that for real? Again, we don't know for sure, but we can come up with some idea. And then he goes on and he says, the only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. Okay, so we have easy wind and downy flake. It's not a hurricane, it's not a tornado, it's not a blustering tropical storm, is it? It's a nice, easy blowing wind, and then the snow is coming down like down, soft and easy and gentle. But what I want us to see here, look at this word, and this is what I came up with earlier. I had not noticed this really, maybe because of where I am in my life. But the only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. What do you do when you're sweeping the floor? You are moving the dirt where? Out, right? Taking it out. You're cleaning. So I was thinking, well, maybe this sweep illuminates the fact that he is, by stopping in these woods, he is cleaning out his old thoughts, making a plan for a new beginning. Does that make sense? But all of this, that's what the beauty of poetry is. You have to work to get it. But when you do start to get it, it is powerful. Remember, literature has the power to move you into a higher level of consciousness. Most people don't just sit around and say, well, I'm stopping by the woods or the sea, and I'm in between times, and I feel really sad, and I'm going to have to just clean my house, metaphorically. No, we don't. We oftentimes just go through life missing the beauty, missing the moment, missing the opportunity to grow in some way. Do you see? And this poetry here is designed to help us grow in emotional maturity. Okay, so the sweeping, it's also contrasted with the stopping. Okay, it's premeditated. I am going to take inventory of my life, and I'm going to get rid of the old, and I'm going to move into the new. But going back up here, I'm still in the waiting game. I'm still waiting. And when you're waiting between the woods and the frozen lake, you're waiting for what season comes after winter? Spring. Oh, winter, spring, summer, fall. So spring is the newness of life, and it's the in-between times here that he's waiting for the newness. And then down here, he says, the woods are lovely, dark and deep. Dark, deep, lovely. But I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So he repeats the word dark twice, okay? So I'm going to put up here dark 2 times, or darkness, okay? So we said perhaps the darkest evening of the year can reflect how he's feeling. And he tells us again, the woods are dark and they're deep. The problem is deep. The spring is far away. I am waiting. But yet in that moment, guess what? He also sees that they are what? Lovely. So just because you're in the middle of a problem and you don't see the end in sight, you can still appreciate the good in your life, can't you? And be grateful. And so I see that as gratitude, appreciation, something here. And even though it's long and it's dark and I don't know what else I'm going to have to go through to finally come through, I know that if I focus on the lovely, perhaps, well, no, if I do, I will make it through. Do you see that? And then he has to keep going because life is what, y'all? Is it a stagnant activity or do we continue to grow? Yes, we move forward. Life it never stops. It never stops. And so even though he is sad, even though he's got a problem perhaps, something big, he knows he has to do what? He has to keep going and he has to fulfill his promises to those he made. Life does not stop when we have a tragedy, does it? It just keeps going, and we can either learn the lessons from it and move forward, or we stay stuck in grief or loss, never growing. And so he says he has promises to keep, which says life keeps moving forward like people should. Okay, so I'm writing my commentary there. And then at the very end, the anaphora here, and miles to go before I sleep. And he repeats it. How many miles does he have to go? Many miles. And is it miles to go before I die? Or miles to go before I finish this problem? Anything. It could be one of the two. We don't know. But we do know he has many miles to go before he actually sleeps and rests in some way. Do you see that? So now, what is the tone? The tone is peaceful. It's still peaceful, isn't it? But it's peaceful with the idea, with hope. It's peaceful, it's sad, but it also has hope, doesn't it? Because he says, I still have miles to go. So therefore, we know he's not stopping forever. You see that? Isn't that beautiful? Okay, so going down to the stanzas, I told you we'd look at that for a moment. There's 4 stanzas. There's 4 lines in each stanza. When you look at it, it makes sense, doesn't it? It's harmonious. Do you see that? It's not a line here and some poetry and some line over here and 2 and 3 stanzas. It's all the same, which equals the peaceful nature of his journey, even in the midst of, say, sorrow and sadness. Yes?
It's 128.
I know.